Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome. Welcome to this first episode of a series of webinars where we're going to talk about cloud and the impacts of cloud. Just by way of background, it's a series of 5 episodes. The first one today is just an introduction to cloud and talk about some background and some things we see in the market and what other people are doing. Obviously, the cloud market's maturing all the time, and you know, there's new concepts, new ideas being introduced to the market. Then the next session, which has now been moved slightly to the 15th of November, we're going to talk more specifically about how you move into the cloud, and we'll touch on it briefly today. But that session will go into some detail about the options, the approaches, what works, what doesn't work. Then 14th December, reporting in the cloud. 25th, integration to cloud, and then the 22nd of Feb we're going to be talking about what the future state means in terms of what is business as usual when you're running a cloud application, ERP, HCM, whatever. All these sessions are meant to be informative, fairly snappy in terms of duration, so 30 minutes max typically, and just to share information. You know, there's a lot of people now making this move. As I said, the market's maturing considerably, and I think it's important people get the input from different experiences. So that's the background. As I said, this is the first one. In terms of my background, I've been implementing ERP solutions for over 25 years, predominantly on-premise, and then more latterly looking at cloud solutions for the last 5 or 6 years, which has put me and Inoapps in a situation where we understand what the market's doing. We're probably ahead of the game in terms of our experience, or we are ahead of the game in terms of our experience. We probably had first mover advantage through some of the activity we undertook, and therefore now have a large number of clients that have made the transition and talking to a very large number more about what process is and where they are in that journey. In terms of the technology, hopefully you can all hear me fine. If there are any issues, depending on whether you're on a mobile device or if you're on a laptop, you'll be able to use the question box or indeed raise your hand if there's a specific issue that maybe you can't hear me or whatever. Feel free to do that. The webinar will be recorded, so we'll be posting links to it out later for people that want to review it again, or if they want to send it on to a colleague, and we'll also send out all the questions and answers. I like to make this quite interactive, so if I've got time I'll take questions as we're going through, and then we'll follow up with all the background information and a copy of the video afterwards. Okay, so today's agenda, what is cloud? I'll talk a bit about what the differences are in terms of public, private and hybrid. I'll also talk a bit about what we're seeing in the marketplace, the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. Why you should then make or look to make the move from on-premise to cloud technology, and I'll talk again about some of the benefits that you can leverage through that transition. Then focus briefly on, you know, where are our customers on that journey to cloud, what we're seeing. I will go into that in a lot more detail in the next session, but today I just want to give you a flavour of what customers are doing. Then I'm going to just log in and do a quick live demonstration of the applications in real time, and then finally I'll talk a bit about some of the other things we're seeing in terms of what customers are doing in terms of their journey to cloud and some of the options that you might want to consider. So briefly, just about Inoapps. So about 330 people across the globe. I've been going for over 10 years now. As I said, made the first mover into cloud, which gave us the advantage when we implemented the stuff internally over four years ago. We've got a global presence, obviously head office, and historically came from an EMEA UK focus, but obviously now have operations in Singapore, Malaysia and the US. That's all I want to say about us. So trends in the marketplace. So we've now got about 20 of these customers that have gone through a cloud deployment, which which each of them's got their own different challenges, but some of the things we're trying to pull out here is what are we seeing that's common across all of them. So the first thing is rapid time to value, and that is we're seeing now implementation cycles taking much less than they used to when you were looking at on-premise software. So typically now we're taking customers from start to initial go live within 4 to 6 months, and that's for simple footprints in terms of pure financials or pure HCM maybe at the low end, and then more complex ones where you've got multiple pillars across things like CRM, HR and finance and projects taking 6 months. Complexity. One of the benefits of cloud, and I'll touch on this a couple of times today, is that you are slightly more restricted in terms of what you can customize within the application. You can do a lot of configuration, but you can't customize, which is a good thing, and it's making people think a bit harder about what they really do need to customize. Obviously, the reason they're doing that is that you're buying into software as a service. So the one thing Oracle need you to do is stay within the core application, so that the upgrades that they deliver twice a year can be digested and will be digested, so that they're keeping you away from doing the large, intrusive customizations that maybe customers used to do in on-premise solutions. Adoption of standard processes. Everybody, as part of the implementation, is looking back at what they implemented, what they do today, and actually saying, actually, that isn't something that we need to do anymore. Therefore, let's go back and implement the standard process. Why do people want to do this? It's to reduce the complexity again. It's to get people back to a common set of functionality. As I said, there's lots of configuration options throughout the application, so it isn't that you're bound by a certain way of doing things. You can configure it to meet some specific requirements. What you can't do in the core application is customize it to the extent used to on-premise. What you can do is build extensions and customizations outside of the software as a service platform, and I'll talk a bit about that later on. And then the last thing is reporting. So some of the BI tools that we'll get to see in one of the later sessions, some of the end reporting tools, extremely powerful, designed for end users, making best use of the technology that's available. So what is that? What is Cloud ERP? Where are we today? If you look at it from an Oracle perspective, obviously they've been on the cloud journey for many years through the activities around acquiring other products and then bringing all those products together into one footprint, whilst also maintaining the applications and limited strategy and keeping product versions going down the line. If you look at where they are today, it's now, I would say, very mature. In the cloud, you've now got ERP, obviously it's been there for quite a while, HCM, been there for even longer. You've got all the CRM aspects, which again, for probably one of the longest tenants in cloud for Oracle. And you've now got people who are now using these deployed live in many different industries. And also, probably more importantly, many customers have now gone through the release cycle, an upgrade cycle, which is a completely different way of working than we used to have on-premise. And again, we'll talk a bit about business as usual state in one of the later webinars, but rest assured there's customers out there that are taking the software, deploying it successfully, and then living with it moving forward and understanding how they need to change their model in order to be able to take on cloud. The other thing we're seeing, just in terms of where we are today, so Hyperion, Oracle are bringing subsets of that product area into the cloud, PBCS probably being one of the more mature, and actually we're seeing a lot more people take PBCS as an add-on to a core implementation of an application such as ERP, whereas in the past I think it was seen as a completely separate structure, and it was slightly cost inhibitive at times. But every single time I would say that we're out there pitching and talking to customers about ERP, they're wanting to have a conversation about PBCS because it's just much more digestible out there. Cloud options. So various different modes and models and different vendors will talk about things in different ways. The way I look at this is you can have your own cloud, which is either sitting in your infrastructure, which is something new that Oracle announced recently, or alternatively hosted in a private cloud. Typically, customers that are still cautious about data security and all that sort of infrastructure point of view go down that route. We have customers also that are working in the hybrid, so they might have some on-prem solutions, but they want to look at moving to the cloud slowly, so they'll put some functionality into the cloud. And I'll talk a bit about one of those later, but one example is we've seen a number of customers that are putting Fusion Accounting Hub reporting services or Oracle sourcing on top of e-Business Suite as the first step into the cloud, and actually getting some great success from those projects as well. And then on the right-hand side is the cloud, public cloud option, which is where most people are going now. Obviously, it's a very mature infrastructure now. Oracle own it from top to bottom. You have one service agreement with those guys in terms of performance, service level, etc. And I'd probably argue that's probably the most secure and upgrade safe in terms of it's their responsibility to keep that up and available and looking forward to future releases. And there are lots of other variants and definitions of different models that you have, but for me they're the three main ones, which is your own dedicated cloud, either on-premise or up in the private hosting. Hybrid, where you're doing a mix, where you've still got some on-premise stuff, but you've got some part of your solution in cloud. And then public cloud, where you're actually just consuming the service completely from outside. And obviously, Oracle is one of the main providers of that functionality, where they've got the technology, the middleware, and the applications all in one area. So why should people look at moving to cloud from on-premise? I'm going to talk about a few examples here. Some of them are specific and reference e-Business Suite as an install base that Oracle's looking at, and obviously the community is looking at. But I think most of these will apply generically for anybody that's sitting there with an on-premise solution. Firstly, you want to try and look at, everyone's trying to reduce their non-strategic business costs. So one thing about having an infrastructure on-site is there is a cost to owning that infrastructure and a set of skills or a set of costs for external skills to keep it online that aren't necessarily your core business. So one of the things about moving to cloud is that all of that will be reduced dramatically, because you just have a contract for the whole supply and provision, maintenance, uptime, upgrades from Oracle. The other thing this does is the capital projects for implementation, the capital projects for refresh of hardware, all again disappear, and you can actually now look at this as an OPEX model. And again, I'll talk a bit about the OPEX model in one of the later presentations. I think moving away from costs, if you then look at what it can do to your business, obviously one of the benefits of cloud is it's a lot more agile. If you want to add users, if you want to add parts of the solution, we're seeing companies now do that very quickly when they're in a growth spurt. So start small and then add to it, or also in terms of the solution footprint, start small and add to it. So what we're finding is people who'll take, say, some core functionality in finance and HR, and then very quickly want to take more around procurement, around inventory, around projects, around some of the edge type technologies. Obviously, also we see a lot of customers that are in a bit of a state where they don't know how to move forward. So they've invested on premise, they've had to customize it for whatever reason, and actually because of the cost to upgrade, it's become inhibitive. Therefore, they're living with the old technology and the old versions as long as possible before they make the move to the latest versions, which means you're not taking advantage of the enhancements that are being built into future product releases as quickly as you can do. So this is about getting the best out of the latest generation of ERP with minimal change effort. Other things, just to call them out, bring agility, efficiency to support company growth. Use the fact that customizations are now technically impossible within core SaaS to try and return to standard processes. I mentioned it earlier, this is quite powerful, because a lot of implementations tended to implement what the company used to do at the time rather than try and modify and bring the process back to what the software looks like. In SaaS, if you can bring the process that you deploy back to what the software will support, it will remove complexity and cost out of your overall solution and cost ownership. Obviously, as I mentioned, new technology, new products. We've got social embedded in the application. We've got mobile apps. We've got embedded BI. So you're actually delivering latest generation of solutions to your user base, and actually then delivering subsequent upgrades to those on a regular basis. So as I mentioned earlier, there's 2 functional deployments every year in terms of releases. So at the moment we're on release 11, release 12 is penciled to be out shortly, and it's a SaaS model. You have to take those upgrades, hence why they restrict how much you can actually customize things within the application. But it's a workable model. Customers are living with it. There's many customers now that have been live for 2 or 3 years. It's just a different way of thinking about what your business as usual state is. Non-business strategic costs, as I said, keeping the lights on is a non-strategic cost. You have to do it, and actually we're doing it in cloud is significantly cheaper, and there's various market research by some of the recognised people out there that it is significantly cheaper to do it in cloud, and the difference between OPEX and CAPEX. Some of the benefits we're seeing: consistent processes across global locations. If you do take the opportunity to look at your processes and take them back to standard processes, you can also then look at making sure you've got standard processes across the globe. Get rid of the need for expensive customizations, automatic upgrades. You are always on the latest version. There is some control, and you define when you want to do the upgrades, and there's obviously testing cycles, etc. So you do have some ability to be in control of that, but ultimately Oracle will want you to be on the latest release. The other thing we're seeing, mentioned earlier, is a faster time to live. So we're seeing customers now have shorter implementation cycles, sprint cycles, to get some functionality live and then grow from there. So is my business ready to take the journey to cloud? As I said, the next episode of this webinar series will focus purely on what that looks like and how you make that move. Obviously, we've spent some time working with a number of people who are either current Oracle on-prem application users or non-Oracle apps users, and we've sat down with them and worked through what is that journey to cloud. So what, how do we work with you guys to understand your readiness? There's some literature available on our website around our cloud readiness assessment activities, but predominantly at a high level, what we do is we come in and do a functional review and technical review of your current systems with you guys, because you guys know your systems better than anyone. That's to help us identify the solution coverage. So obviously, there are some edge type activities or some customizations that are being built because product functionality wasn't there in standard. And again, we have to look at that and look at where cloud is and its maturity and understand where any gaps exist. And then what we do is, once we've documented that, is come back to you and present to you what we think the options are. And quite often, one of those things will be talk to you about platform as a service, or PaaS, to provide a solution for any gaps that you have. So PaaS, platform as a service, is where you can build the extensions out that fully integrate with SaaS, software as a service, and Oracle supports this integration, and PaaS is in cloud as well. So you're staying with the cloud message. Oracle supports it as a model, and it's where you add the stuff that you can't do within standard product. Part of that analysis also is to give you some return on investment benefit analysis from a cost perspective, which obviously you can then use to build your business case once you've understood what the options are and just defined what your strategy is in terms of moving forward. Okay, so we've spoken quite a lot about Oracle Cloud ERP. For the next session, let's have a quick look and see what it feels like and looks like. I'm going to log on to a demo instance just to give you visibility of the home screen. So I'm going to go, I've clicked on a URL, take me to a logon page. I'm going to log on as one of the demo users. Once I've signed on, it'll present me with my home screen. A few things to note here. Firstly, the look and feel, the colour, the background, the logos can all be customized to the way that you would like your homepage to feel in line with corporate identification policy, etc. So some areas to note. So obviously on the right hand side of the main part of the screen here, I've got a list of all the areas that, based upon my security profile, it will allow me to access relevant areas in relevant screens in those areas. So for example, if I was going to go into procurement, under my profile I can go and do purchase requisitions, purchasing, receipts, negotiations, catalogs, suppliers, supplier qualifications, etc. You can also access all the various menu options that you have access to by clicking the navigator in the top left hand corner. Other things to note, so search will not only look across the application, it will look across recent items that you've been accessing for whatever you want to search for. Favorites, if you have tagged or want to tag certain screens or certain infolets as being your favorite ones, these will appear in this list here, and again also with your recent items. Watch list is quite a nice bit of functionality. So if you're involved in some transactions, or if you've tagged some transactions where you want to watch, so if something goes from an unapproved state to an approved state, then if you've got it in your watch list, then you'll be made aware of the fact that that's happened. Notifications, so notifications for transactions that need your review or approval will be sent out, can be sent out via email, but also you can get a list of them from within this home page. On the left hand side here we have our social net. I haven't really spoken about the social side of things, but I think this is one of the powerful functionalities. So within the application you can have different levels of social discussion, and these could be at a company level where you're putting out company news, could be at a division level in terms of you're putting out news to a certain group of people, say within a finance department or HR department, or maybe even a bid team. And then also you can have a social discussion about a particular transaction. So if you've got an AP invoice that is being chased, or an AR customer invoice that you're chasing, you can add in comments there about things that you've done. So you've spoken to Fred at customer X and made him aware that his invoice needs paying and he's promised to pay it within the next 7 days. That will be tagged as a discussion, and I'll demo this in one of the later sessions, a discussion against that transaction. What that means is everybody that's then attached to that transaction gets to see visibility, if you've chosen to make it a public comment around that transaction. We'll see that comment, and therefore we won't have multiple people asking the same question all the time, because the information is stored against the transaction. Down here also you can see relevant to me all the purchase documents, requisitions, invoices, or tasks, etc. that I'm actually involved in at any point in time, or tagged on at any point in time. So as you can see, quite a nice user-friendly interface. It can be customizable to be how you want it to look in terms of corporate identity, etc. And the other thing is you can start to add in what we call infolets, so information dashboards, key performance indicators, where at a click of a button you want to see what's going on in terms of your projects you're running, the health of some of those projects in this example, status of time cards, status of invoices, etc., etc. All customer and employee focus, so you decide what you want to look at based upon your customers and the customers that you're working for around projects, or information about areas in the business that you've got responsibility for. So hopefully you get a good feeling there for what the system looks and feels like. As I said, we will go into that a bit later on with some more demonstrations of things like OTBI, So the transaction business intelligence dashboards, and also some of the reporting and some of the core functionality a bit later on. And also the security is built in and embedded throughout the whole of the application. So let's just focus in the last couple of minutes, let's just focus on what route should take and what people are seeing out there and the options that they're seeing out there in the marketplace. So I think we're seeing a number of things, and I've picked four out to talk about today. So, you know, there are a lot of people that are staying where they are, okay, and you know, they're doing that because they're concerned about risk, because of data, because they're not 100% sure about cloud. So there are a lot of people that are just sitting waiting to see what happens. Another thing, and this is quite interesting and quite an evolving area in the market, is people are beginning to look at a halfway house. So Oracle's invested quite a lot in their compute technology, so infrastructure as a service. And one of the things people are looking at is saying, actually, you know, rather than go the whole 9 yards and move straight to cloud as a whole application stack, let's get to a halfway house, and that is let's take away the internal hardware or the private cloud within a generic service provider that does hosting, and actually let's get Oracle to take responsibility for our infrastructure in the cloud. So doing migration of application on-premise into a Oracle infrastructure as a service. I think that whole market will grow, and I think more and more people will look at that as a step towards cloud. What does it do? It takes away some of your costs on infrastructure. It takes away some of the management level of infrastructure, and it gives somebody else the responsibility to keep you up and running and having a performance desktop, performance service, without all of the internal costs that some companies have in doing it. Other options are migrate to cloud for smaller entities as a proof point. Again, you know, if you've got entities that you know, are really split off and just do reporting back into the main office, don't necessarily need the complexity of a massive on-premise infrastructure and solution, then why don't you look at what some companies are looking at, spinning those off into a cloud, keeping the same chart accounts, keeping the same structure in terms of major entity decisions, and then consolidating that data back into something like PBCS, or bringing it back into consolidation within the core application. So, you know, using an entity to make it to do the proof pointing and build that understanding and maturity and confidence. I also have seen, we have also seen it where if you've done an acquisition and that company's maybe, you know, a subset in terms of size and functionality, then actually why would you bring them inside a costly, expensive on-premise solution? Why not put them into cloud and again do consolidation through PBCS or through core application? Or the other thing is take a process to cloud. So I mentioned a couple earlier, so Fusion Accounting Hub reporting allows you to take the power of Fusion Accounting Hub and sit it in the cloud above things like a cloud ERP system and EBS and JD Edwards and whatever systems you want. The other perfect example is Oracle sourcing. So again, if you've got core procurement working, then why not look at extending that and actually put sourcing in the cloud? And there's built integrations between EBS as an example and cloud sourcing, and it means you start to digest some of the edge type functionality, some of the advanced type functionality as a service rather than deploying it with the on-premise stuff, and it builds that confidence, builds that journey to the cloud. And again, you know, there's many other people doing other things than the ones I've listed here, and every customer is slightly different in terms of where they are in terms of risk and understanding of the cloud and where they want to go. And part of, I guess, our role is to pitch to people what is there, what's mature, what's coming down the line that is going to impact things, and sharing this across the group and the community, and that's really what these webinars are about. So, as I mentioned earlier, today was the first one. Next one is much more focused on into cloud, secrets of how lean companies move into cloud ERP. Then we're going to look at reporting, then we're going to look at integration, both of which are real questions that we get asked on a regular basis, by the way, which is how do you integrate into cloud, what's the reporting like? And then final one is we're going to close on what does business as usual look like for cloud. All meant to be very informative, all meant to be, you know, snippet 30-minute sessions, all being recorded. They'll be up on the website. We'll post out links afterwards. Apologies for the technical issue earlier. I can assure you that's the first time it's failed to connect to me today. So apologies. And if there's a few questions coming which I'll answer subsequent to the session, and we'll share those answers with everybody, as well as links, etc., to the video and some of the slide decks as well. I hope you found it informative, hope you found it enjoyable, and thank you very much for your time. And any questions, you can always contact me on my email address, which is phil.wilson@inoapps.com, or feel free to post to us on social. We're quite active in Twitter and LinkedIn at all times. Thank you very much, and have a good day.